Hey, so in your perspective, why do you think some people run away from the topic of God and government?
Fear. Simply said, fear. Control, fear of judgment, just fear overall. I mean, mostly, honestly, I think people is just fear of judgment, bro. No one wants to be looked at as a bad person, you know what I mean? As far as with God, and then with the government, like weed smoking or alcohol, they frown upon these things, so people do things like that so they don't get judged. They fear being judged.
Hey, I think that's an honest answer. What's funny about the whole thing is that God came to die for the guilty, right? And the government's for the people and by the people, right? So both entities are supposed to, in principle, help the people. First question, do you guys feel that God and government should be separate or together?
Separate.
Separate.
All right. Do you guys feel like let's start there. What's a good reason why people run away from the God and government topic? Should they not? Like, what are some thoughts on that?
I mean, religion is like a choice and not everyone chooses to associate with it, but everyone has to follow laws and things like that. So I think when religion gets related into laws, it just gets messy because it's only supporting one group of people.
It's also all religions are usually pretty different, and so they could have different opinions on what their religion lets them do or something, but a law doesn't allow different people to do different things, so it should,
So here's a thought. The founding fathers of America, why did they endorse God in the Declaration of Independence when they said the laws of nature and of nature's God? And why do government people tend to mention or invoke the name of God if they didn't care for God to be a formula in the life of America? In your perspective.
Well, the founding fathers were only supporting one group of people, which is what we just said, where it's religion is a choice. And if you look at that time frame, they are those laws were only made for certain people and not for others.
Yeah, I think rules in my house are made for my kids. You know what I mean? But I think.
But it doesn't apply to kids that aren't yours. Yeah.
But it sure does benefit my kid if my kid goes in the right direction. And so maybe they saw that America was their baby, and they're like, hey, this got to be a formula. And if we look at it today, we're an awesome country, and that formula has worked really well. Unless we're digressing, but that could be. I think so. Try to go live in Venezuela.
I mean,
that's a good point. You gotta
try to go live in Africa,
Yeah, we're not the worst country, but we're not the best. We have issues.
That's right. Hey, why do you think people run from the topic of God and government?
I think people run from religion and government because of the fact that they're scared, and a lot of people run away from that situation just because they don't know too much. Small-minded people, they leave it up to other people, and they shouldn't. You got your own mind, your own heart, and you can follow your own path, and other people choose to let people make decisions for them. So that's why I think people run away from religion and government.
Yeah. So first question, do you think that God and government should be separate?
No.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Why not?
Honestly, I really haven't put too much thought into it, honestly. But if the government can talk about what they want to, why can't God be in the same house?
Ooh, if the government can talk about what they want to, why can't others talk about God? Yeah, I just heard somebody talk about that. They said that if people could be loud about their transgender beliefs or their abortion beliefs, then why can't Christians be loud about what they believe?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in fairness, right?
Yes.
Okay. So does our time belong to God or does it belong to the government?
The government would like to think it belongs to them, but you have to search within yourself and know who you belong to.
Do you think we live in a society that is too busy for God?
Absolutely, myself included. I have to slow myself down and catch myself at times. Absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah, we do.
That's honest, bro.
In ourselves a lot.
That's honest. I like that answer a lot. Yeah, so there's a quote out there that says only forgiven sinners go to heaven. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts. Go ahead, you can think about it for a second. Only forgiven sinners go to heaven. It's a little deep, man. You got to think about it for a second.
That's a hard one for me to answer, I'll be honest with you, because Christ died for us to be able to be forgiven. And I don't feel like at any point in time it's ever too late. So at any point in time, anyone can be forgiven. And then at the same time, I don't want to say even the ones that weren't forgiven, because that sounds really weird to me. I believe all can be forgiven. So I think everyone could go to heaven, bro. I don't.
Let me share a clip of the gospel with you.
Okay.
So the clip of the phrase or that quote is to get people to think like this. It's to think that, hey, we're all guilty of something, and the only way I can get right with God is if he forgives me. And this is my example. If I were to commit a heinous crime against you, you wouldn't let me in your house. Not joyfully, not lovingly. You would have some bitterness and be like, man, you just rant over my dog, or you just try to do something heinous to me.
Most people, but that's those that are empty, that don't have God, don't have that love, don't have that guidance. Me personally, I don't hold grudges because I know that Christ died for me and everyone else. So
you're quick to forgive.
Very quick.
So do you agree with the principle that the person that's not quick to forgive would be like, no, you can't come into my house?
They're to each his own.
But the only way for me to get in that person's house, if that person was forgiving and said, you know what, bro, I know that there's a mess up that happens. I'm going to extend forgiveness to you, and I'm going to let you into my house.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and that's the same thing that God does with us, is that he says, you know what, the only way to get into my house is that there's forgiveness between you and I.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to extend this forgiveness to you. If you accept it, come on in, and let's dine together without the bitterness, and let's dine together without the hatefulness.
Right. So I think to follow up with that, the only ones that wouldn't be able to get into the house of God, into heaven, is those that don't want the forgiveness, because he's freely given that forgiveness for those who want it, I think.
So they first have to understand that forgiveness is there. So we would say that understanding would have to turn into belief, and they would have to turn into trust that God is there for them and not against them.
Absolutely.
And we live in a place where a lot of people think that God is too judgmental and against them because they feel like God's taken away their freedoms. But God loves them so much that he says, hey, be careful what you do.
Yeah.
Be watchful over your life. Christ is the answer. This is my answer to you. This is the answer to the world. Go and share. Come and dine with me.
I'm with that. I'm not with the government.
That's okay. You know what? We need Christ. We don't necessarily need a whole lot of chaos or a whole lot of opinions. We need Christ at the end of the day. And if people want to follow Christ and still hold the mantle of office, and they still want to do things that pertain to the principles of God, hey, it's all good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they got to be sincere and they got to be committed. Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, bro, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed this.
That was dope.
And so my next question is, there's a quote out there that only forgiven sinners go to heaven. How do you feel about that?
What was that again?
There's a quote out there that says only forgiven sinners go to heaven.
Only forgiven sinners go to heaven. Only forgiven sinners go to heaven. I don't know too much about that, man. Only forgiven sinners go to heaven.
Can I share the gospel with you in a small clip of that? All right, so the reason why it's worded that way is just to make us think, like, if I committed a crime against you, you probably wouldn't let me in your house.
Right.
You'd probably be like, nah, man, you can't come up in my house. Right. But if you have forgiveness, that would be the entry. You'd be like, you know what, I forgive you, something happened, this, yada, yada, yada. Exactly. Come into my house because I got forgiveness. And that's the gospel message, is that God got forgiveness offered to us.
Like getting baptized.
Yeah, so he's like, the blood of my son, the sacrifice that had happened on that cross, is your entryway to forgiveness. But first you got to receive that, and then you got to walk in that freedom. And so that's the gospel message. And so a lot of people run away from the whole idea of God in and the government stuff is because, you know, like you said, they're scared.
Right.
But both things are supposed to be for the people. But I would say that God is definitely for the people.
Right.
The government might be questionable, but we should never question God's intention, because his intentions come from love. And I think people don't understand that place of love that he's doing for us is supposed to serve us in such a way that it's supposed to heal us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, you know, are you a believer?
Yeah, I believe in God.
Yeah. You believe your sins are forgiven if you come to him?
Yeah. Overall, I keep myself healthy and maintain a good, you know, personal profile, you know.
What you do about that little percentage that goes wrong? What do you do about that little thing? Because you said overall, so there's a little bit of
A whole
room.
bunch of sins, man. So, I mean, it's hard not to sin, such as like drinking and sex before marriage, you know. So, I mean, overall, you know, I'm a good person.
After this conversation, would you think about, you know, talking to God a little bit more and thinking about possibly going to church and getting plugged in a little bit more?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because we saw that the pandemic took lives last year. It's taking lives today. And people were here one day and they were gone the next day. And you know, I think that's a clear warning from God, is like, hey, time is short. We're on borrowed time.
Exactly.
And you know what? I want to see you use your borrowed time good, bro. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I find God to be that important. You know, so saying no to the drugs, saying no to the women, saying no to the dope game, saying no to the guns, saying no, you know what I'm saying? Saying no to all that stuff. That takes a lot of heart. Yeah, so yeah, think about this, bro.
I mean, I used to go to Bible school, but I haven't gone in like 10 years, so I don't really know what they're even.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Do you guys ever question, like, 'cause the pandemic took a lot of lives last year. It's taking lives today. Do you guys ever question how important that topic might be, though?
God related to the pandemic?
No, God just related to life. If God is about life, how important would that be? And unless you think we came from evolution. Some people believe that, some people don't.
Yeah, I think we
It's
came
hard to
from
believe that he's a
evolution.
real person.
You don't
Yeah.
believe that there was an intelligent designer that created all this?
Really.
There's no intelligent design in your guys' eyes?
Sounds like
Oh,
make believe magic to
Yeah.
us.
it's kind of like
It's like-
unicorns and mermaids.
It's like if you have never seen it, like Santa Claus.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't see the wind, but we know it's there because we can feel it. And I think sometimes our conscience pricks at us because we know there's something bigger than us out there. And I think belief can be very dangerous at times. For example, if I don't believe that gravity exists and I jump off of a building, I'm going to come to the reality that gravity exists, and it's a grave danger if I gamble with that. Like, so I think belief could be very dangerous.
Like scientifically proven about gravity.
Yeah.
Is there science behind
And,
God?
like,
Like there's
wind.
science behind evolution.
Yeah.
The science would be intelligent designer. I mean, well, it would be by creation by design. Because I mean, did you make that, or did someone else make that, or did it just magically appear?
Made
It got
by
made after I
someone.
purchased it.
It had a maker, right?
Just like
So it had a maker.
person create this whole place.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to us. It's just really hard to believe.
Yeah.
How did we come out of nothing?
Well,
That's really hard to believe too, though.
well, it's
Everything
like
about the world
panspermia,
and
yeah.
came. It's just hard to believe anything, you know? Like,
But again, belief could be dangerous. Whether I believe in it or not, it doesn't mean that I'm going to meet that at the end of the day. I have to get a fair handshake of whether if it's real or not.
I kind of just believe in science and what's like proven.
You don't think God is science, though?
No, I don't think he's been proven. Are we
That's
good?
just ours.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. You know that, and that's good. You know, just if this isn't evidence around us, if you're not evidence of life, and if you know, if we die and that's it, and there's no more, then okay, then we'll gamble with.
That's it. That's
We gamble with what we put our hope in. All right, hey, thank you guys. I hope you guys consider the conversation and